topic is public theology and the common good. We had the emergency clinic veterinarian put our dog Buddy to sleep last week. He was 14 years old, and I didn't realize how ill he was until I heard him drop to the floor after his legs collapsed under him. It was an emotional event for me. I've had him for many years since his previous owner said to me, "I hate this dog." Yeah, exactly. My niece, by the way. But anyway, what happens when things that are serious occur in your life, when there is illness, death, loss of a job, or a child in trouble? Who do you turn to? Do you have a trusted friend, a therapist, or a spiritual advisor? Do you write or read religious or spiritual books? My wife Leela and I were able to talk and cry about Buddy. We even had a New Orleans-style funeral for him, and a burial complete with my daughter's boyfriend, the accordion player, who did a rendition of "When the Saints Go Marching In" and "How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?" And then I called my sister Jean. She knew Buddy when he was young as his dog sitter. She wouldn't take him on she would have taken him on if I hadn't given him a home. I also turned to an app that I have for meditation. I had a meditation about the Rainbow Bridge, which is what dogs supposedly cross when they die to get to the place where there are endless toys and lots of romping with other dogs. So that is how I coped with my grief over Buddy's loss, and I'm still coping. So what do we do when a whole society or country is facing a painful, traumatic change? How do we cope with war, political upheaval, cruelty by our government? Where do we turn to navigate our collective struggle? That's where public theology comes in. Around the middle of the 20th century, the term public theology was coined. It resulted from discussions by academics, faith leaders, politicians, and activists who wanted to bring a religious focus on a secular issue. Progressive Protestant leaders were at the forefront of the thinking about what to do about wars, the Great Depression, and racial inequality. A man named Reinhold Niebuhr, a famous American theologian, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King were two of the most visible figures in this ideology. Religion has historically been a part of society's fabric. The kinds of secular challenges to government concerning poverty, suffering, injustice, and unequal power were the kinds of issues that religions have been pondering for a very long time. But in the late 20th century, input from religions became less welcome in the public square. Religion is very much front and center in public life now. Conservatism lives in a world of Christian nationalism, both on a federal and state level. Christian nationals say that this is exclusively a Christian country without a separation of church and state. The conservative Christianity that has certain rules about what makes a good Christian. Conservative Christians are against a woman's right to choose. They are against the rights of LGBTQ plus people, and they see men as the only rightful rulers of the family, society, and this country. And some of them even want to outlaw a woman's right to vote. And there's also their own racist element. But there are liberal Christian Democrats who are rising in prominence with followings in states that are a mix of conservative and liberal values. These Christians call themselves Matthew 25 Christians. That was the part that I read earlier. That's Matthew 25. Now, mind you, I was raised Roman Catholic, and Roman Catholics in my day didn't study much about the Bible. On Sunday, we had a reading from the New Testament of the Bible, and it was about a paragraph long. That was it. I first learned about Matthew 25 Christians from a book that was written by John Fugelsang, that one I read from. It's called Separation of Church and Hate, so I quoted that in my opening words. The book appealed to me because John Fugelsang is a comedian. Anything that's funny, I'll read, okay? So that just appeals to me. And the book is also about using the actual words in the Bible when speaking to fundamentalist Christians who have some of those ideas that I'm not fond of. John Fugelsang talks about how many things the Christian conservatives preach that are not in the Bible, and certain things like abortion, gay rights, and trans rights are not mentioned by Jesus, and women were accepted by Jesus as equals. Fugelsang was raised knowing about the roots of Christianity, and his parents were the kind of people who believed that Jesus loved the downtrodden and believed that we should take care of them. He simplifies what Jesus said in Matthew 25 into 4 things. These are good to take away. Take care of the poor, take care of the sick, visit those in jail, and welcome the stranger. Amen to that, is right. This is a sentence that can power through any discussion with a Christian nationalist. There are 2 Democratic politicians that I know of who identify themselves as Matthew 25 Christians. These are politicians who espouse a public theology that is centered in love, much as our faith, Unitarian Universalism, is. The 2 men are Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia and James Tallarico, who is running for the U.S. Senate in Texas. Senator Warnock is also the senior pastor of Atlanta's famed Ebenezer Baptist Church, where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was once among his predecessors in the pulpit. Senator Warnock, who identifies himself as a Matthew 25 Christian, was interviewed by the New York Times, and he had this to say about the present types of legislation that is being pushed through Congress. Part of the obligation of a person of faith is to ask yourself, what are you actually worshiping? What are you actually committed to? Are you committed to the poor? Are you committed to the despised and the rejected? Would Jesus agree with the actions of ICE in this moment, in which we're seeing organized cruelty on our streets, masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, separating families, terrorizing whole communities of people, whether they're documented or not, whether they are citizens or not? What is it in the gospel, I would ask my colleagues, that says that this is right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There's some variation of that in all of the great faith traditions, and that's the question people aren't asking themselves deeply enough. Because if you do, you might actually have to make some decisions that make you uncomfortable. James Tallarico is a former middle school teacher and a state lawmaker from Texas who puts his Christian faith right at the center of his campaign. He's also the grandson of a Baptist preacher and is a Presbyterian seminarian. When Tallarico was on the Stephen Colbert show, he said, well, for 50 years, the religious right, a political movement, that is the perfect description for it, they convinced a lot of our fellow Christians that the most important issues were abortion and gay marriage, 2 issues that aren't mentioned in the Bible, 2 issues that Jesus never talked about. Jesus in Matthew 25 tells us exactly how you and I and every one of our fellow believers, how we're going to be judged and how we're going to be saved. By feeding the hungry, by healing the sick, by welcoming the stranger. It was all about how you treat people. Can public theology be looked at from a non-religious point of view? Yes, it can. If you wanted to see it from a secular point of view, you would call it the common good. I recently read an article by Robert Reich. He served in 4 presidential administrations, and his highest position was as Secretary of Labor in the Clinton administration. And he has been a college professor for the later years of his life. On July 2nd, he posted an article on his website in which he says, and I quote, America's common good consists of our shared values about what we owe one another, as citizens bound together in the same society, the norms we voluntarily abide by, and ideals we seek to achieve. Reich goes on to talk about how America is different from other nations that have a common culture, history, and language. He says that America is united by a common good. He quotes Carl Friedrich, who said that to be an American is an idea, while to be a Frenchman is a fact. In other words, if there is no common good, there is no America. We don't have common culture or a type of people. We are an idea about what is justice. The common good of America came about when we were first founded with people objecting to a king across the ocean, taxing them without Americans having a representative that could approve or disapprove of that taxation. Throughout our history, we have struggled with what is justice in a free country. We fought a civil war over the right of white people to own black people. The labor movement was a class struggle over the working conditions of working people. People evolve in their thinking about justice issues. It took a little over 80 years after our founding for most Americans to believe that slavery was wrong. According to Reich, the first half of the 20th century was an expression of our common good through the Depression and war. It was agreed that after World War II, the common good was so valuable that we financed all sorts of common good by putting our tax dollars into a national highway system, Medicare, Medicaid, and schools and universities. After Europe was destroyed in World War II, we rebuilt it. We moved legislation and resources to ensure the voting rights and civil rights of black Americans, and we opened doors of opportunities to women. Robert Reich says that not only does the American common good exist, but it is essential for America to function. Without adherence to a set of common notions about right and wrong, daily life would be insufferable. We would be living in a jungle where only the strongest, cleverest, and most wary would hope to survive. This would not be America, at least not the America most of us care about. Our minds throughout history need to evolve to understand that there is no limit to how big the greater good can be. It can be even greater. It is the ideals of Matthew 25 that need to be the guiding principles of our common good now. Taking care of the least of us is the best focus for our common good. We are faced with many challenges as a country that has a cruel edge to it. Our government steals money from Medicaid and SNAP food benefits to help billionaires buy another yacht with another tax deduction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know that I suffer from the stress of the news headlines, by the way. So let me go back to the earlier part of this sermon. How do we cope with the stresses of daily life in this challenged America? This America that is turning its back on the common good. We use the same skills that I talked about earlier, about the toolbox over there. We meditate, pray, and talk with trusted friends and those who would offer us good company and good counsel. And then get out of your head with music and creativity. Paint, journal, knit, sew, dance, garden, watch cat videos. That's what I do. Or take, sometimes I watch dog videos too, or take a hike, either one. Maybe do a project in your home that you've been meaning to do for a while. And don't forget to volunteer to help either with an organization that expresses love in its work, or visit a neighbor or a lonely elder or someone who is ill or in jail. The way to cure the ills of this country and ourselves is to weave the American common good with strands of love.